Hello ladies and gentlemen, once again this is Jeremy Smith, Photog J the Great. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about a new lens I finally got my hands on, and this is the Sigma 18 to 35 1.8. Wow, I never thought that I would see a zoom lens that's this fast. This lens continues on with Sigma's new art lineup of lenses. We've already taken a look at one other lens in this range so far. We looked at the 35mm 1.4 as well, which was an outstanding lens. This one continues on in that tradition. This is a very, very good lens as well. I just, wow. It's hard for me to compare this in a way because there really isn't a whole lot to compare it to. Of course, there's your, the standard 2.8 zooms that we're all very familiar with at this point. Nikon and Canon, they both have 17 to 55s and 24 to 70s and lenses in ranges like that. This lens is a little bit, it is kind of a strange range, 18 to 35. This is a crop sensor lens, I will point out. This is not a lens meant for full frame cameras. So yeah, it's kind of a strange range actually. Normally, if I were shooting with an 18 to 35, I would find it to be most useful on a full frame camera because I would use it as an ultra wide angle lens. On APS-C, on a crop sensor camera, 18 is not really wide. 18 equals about 27 or 28 millimeters, and 35 is about 50 millimeters, 35 millimeter equivalent. So it's not really, it's kind of an awkward range. However, I will let this lens slide by on that because, it's 1.8 and it's a zoom. That's kind of the big thing with this lens. The image quality is excellent, as you guys will see. I'll show you a few samples. I shot this lens on a Canon 60D. I'm not as familiar with that camera, even though I know my way around it well enough. I would have much rather shot this on a Nikon that I'm familiar with, but of course I had an opportunity to test this lens. It didn't happen to be a Canon mount, so I was obviously not going to turn it down, Canon or Nikon or whatever. So I was very impressed though. I'm going to sit it down there for a moment. This lens spec-wise is very, very interesting to me. I think that obviously while this lens is a very, very good lens in terms of image quality, I think this lens has an even greater purpose. And while I do think it's a win for photographers, but I think it's an even bigger win for marketing. And the reason I say that is because oftentimes companies create something, and it doesn't matter if it's a camera lens or a car or whatever it is, but oftentimes camera manufacturers or manufacturers period create something, and it gets people talking. It's as cliche as this sounds, it's a game changer. It's something that's revolutionary and different. And a zoom lens that goes down to a fast maximum aperture of 1.8 is definitely something that's unique and gets people talking, and it gets people excited about the brand. So I think that's an even bigger win for Sigma. Let's see here. I'll go over a couple little specs here. Let's see, 17 elements in 12 groups. Let's see here, 5 super low dispersion elements. Very, very good glass. No doubt, very good glass. The one thing I like about the Sigma lenses, I'm a little bit torn about aftermarket lens companies. I do like Tamron as well. They have some very good lenses as well in terms of image quality. But the thing I like about Sigma is they have all their newer lenses that they've been coming out with have been very good also, but they have a very, very good focusing system that's much more akin to what you'd find in a Nikon or Canon lens, whereas most of the Tamron lenses are a little bit slower focusing. So let's see here, 72mm front filter size, and of course it does come with the hood as well. Canon mount, Nikon mount, and the Sigma mount. Hopefully at some point in time they'll come out with this for Sony mount as well. That'd be really, really awesome. and it'd be cool if they came out with a full frame lens that was capable of this as well. Although I imagine one of the main reasons why this is APS-C is because I would imagine, I mean I'm no engineer, but I would think that it'd be easier to make this sort of lens for APS-C than it would be for full frame. Nonetheless though, really great lens. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at it, and then we'll get on to some samples. It actually looks very much like all of Sigma's other newer lenses, like their new 120-300 and the new 35 1.4 and 17-70 and so forth. They all have this very nice design to them. Very nice looking barrel. And of course we've got the little A there, designating this as a lens that's in their art series. Has a very, very nice weight, but nice feel to it. Made in Japan. Very nice. It does have some pretty decent sealing. As I pointed out though, on the 35 1.4, it doesn't have a little rear gasket at the back. None of these lenses are completely 100% waterproof anyway, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But if you do care about that sort of thing, it's worth mentioning. All in all, though, very, very good looking lens. Both the zoom ring and the focus ring have a very nice feel to them. It definitely feels more like an old school lens. It doesn't feel like a newer autofocus lens in the way this feels. I mean, I actually shot a little bit of video that I'll show you guys too with this lens. And in video mode, you know, a lot of the autofocus lenses just don't work out very well because the zoom ring is kind of loose and not well damped. This one doesn't have that issue. It feels very, very nice. It's very smooth, yet it has a weighty feel to it. It does keep turning whenever you get to the end of the focus range, but it's pretty obvious when it stops though still. So I'd say this would be a good lens for video. To be honest with you, aside from me occasionally going to like 18 millimeters and saying, oh look, I can go to 1.8, I actually didn't zoom with this a whole lot. It was kind of weird, you know. I really kind of felt like I was using a fixed 35 or fixed 28 most of the time. And of course a lot of that is just going to have to do with the way that I shoot. I usually have a tendency to shoot, I usually don't shoot very, very wide, so anyways, that's probably why it felt that way for me. But it was nice to have, even though it's not very much zoom, it was nice to have a little bit of a zoom range there. Yeah, it looks very, very similar to the 35 1.4 in the front element actually. So anyways, and of course Sigma, they have their pinch caps as well now, so that is a good thing. Okay, we'll go ahead and take a look at a little bit of the samples I shot. Show you guys a little bit of a few of the still photos and a little bit of the video as well.
Okay, so here you are guys, just a quick look at some of the images that I captured with this lens. I went around and shot some random images, as usual. Okay, so here we go, here's a nice one. 35 millimeters, ISO 250, f1.8, 1/200th of a second. I shot all of these on the Canon 60D. As you can see, pretty sharp here. I will be reporting back whenever I shoot this lens more on something I'm more familiar with. One of the first things I was eager to do though was try this lens at 1.8 at a wider focal length. Here's a nice shot at 20 millimeters, 1.8, really sharp. You'll see a little bit of color fringing throughout a lot of these images, but not really that big of a deal. Color fringing is something that's very, very easy to remove, especially if you're shooting raw. And It's something that, well, I wouldn't say that it's any more color fringing than what you'd see using a faster prime. So, lots of nice detail there. The depth of field isn't as shallow as you might imagine it to be. Of course, that's because I was shooting at 20 millimeters there. None of these shots themselves are anything special, but of course I was just trying to shoot the lens in a variety of different conditions. Let's see, 18 millimeters f1.8. And I will see about getting some of these photos posted as well, and put some links in the description. So of course I was focused right here in the middle, 18 millimeters again, so depth of field may not be quite as shallow as you would think. A little bit of color fringing. Notice along these areas here. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. Let's zoom in this way. So yeah, you can see just a little bit of color fringing. Nothing at all terrible though. And a caterpillar that I found. A little bit softer here in this shot. Wide open. But similar fast primes are going to be a little soft too. If shot this wide open. The image characteristics actually remind me a lot of the Nikon 28mm 1.8 that I tested. You wouldn't typically shoot a shot like this at 1.8, but of course I was trying to see what would happen with the lens and how it would produce images. There's a little bit more color fringing up throughout those areas. As the day wore on, though, I kept thinking, what on earth could I shoot in low light conditions that it would be nice to have a zoom for? Anyways, you'll see what I came up with in a moment here. 35 into the focal length this time. Stop down to f8. So extremely sharp there, as you can imagine. And let's see here. Notice that that color fringing that we were seeing earlier is now gone at f8. These are raw files right out of the Canon 60D. Just open at the default settings in Lightroom, so no additional processing or anything going on. Oh look, there's a woman over there. Can't tell if she's model worthy from this distance. Anyways, so all in all really good. Random water droplet photo. 1.8. Let's see, let me set this back to where it's not going to zoom in quite that far. There we go. So you can see how the color fringing goes a little bit here. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's any worse than what you'd see on a fast prime, honestly. The evening we're on. 35 millimeters, 1.8. I was getting only a 30th of a second here, so there is going to be some blurriness. But of course caused by subject movement mostly. This entire area back here is out of focus. I'm pretty much focusing on this officer right here, so you can see everyone else in the background is nice and out of focus there. And let's see here, another shot. Notice the road sign that isn't moving, and this vehicle here that isn't moving are the sharpest things in this part. whereas this guy right here that's moving is kind of blurry there. Lots and lots of random people. I'm not really into the whole street photography thing, but I could see where if you're a street photographer, this would be like one of the main uses for this lens in my mind. Once again, this is shot wide open, 1.8 of course, 20 millimeters, 1/60th of a second. So I'm getting a little bit better shutter speed here. I bumped that up and my results are a little bit better. So you notice that there's a lot more sharp people in this image. As a portrait photographer, I don't find myself bothering too much about corners, but to me the corners look pretty good as well. Let's go over here and look. Not bad at all. You can see where the focus kind of drops off right here as we go across the back of that truck there. Surprisingly, not a lot of color fringing around these highlight areas. Let's see here. I'm going to flick over to this side real fast. Okay, I was making sure I didn't do any editing to that one. I didn't think I did. This scene is just, it's almost got that monochromatic look to it. Back over there. With it being Independence Day, it finally occurred to me that taking some firework images might be kind of cool. Normally you would not take firework images at 1.8. You know, normally you would get a tripod out and do it a bit differently. But of course my main objective was to test this lens. A little bit out of focus there. Oh, we got a little bit of color fringing going on. So I think there's some better ones here. Let's see. Oh, let's look at this one. Pretty grainy because of the 2500 ISO. As I said, you know, normally you wouldn't shoot fireworks this way, but this way was more fun though. And of course it tested our lens better. Pretty sharp though. Let's see, I'm going to go through some of these. Yeah, so all in all, really good sharp performance, I'd say. The edges aren't too bad either, even at wide focal length and wide aperture. A little bit of color fringing again, but nothing terrible. Definitely not more than a few clicks to get rid of that sort of thing. Very, very interesting lens, no doubt. I'll go ahead and show you a little bit of the video that I shot with this. Oh wait, hold on. I want to show you this one too. So yeah, this is a good. I liked this shot quite a bit for just a random test image. 1/25th of a second, f2.2, 18 millimeters. Pretty nice detail. And yes, in case anyone's wondering, all these shots are handheld. Yeah, notice even when we look down here, even at f1.8 and 18 millimeters, we've got some pretty sharp results, I'd say. Once again, we are starting to see more color fringing and such along the edges than we do in the middle of the frame. If you look at some highlights here in the middle, you don't see that nearly as much, but once you start to make your way out to the edges, color fringing starts to creep its way into the frame. Once again, though, not terrible in my opinion. Yeah, Anyway, so I'm going to show you some video that I shot with this, just a few little seconds. Um, but yeah, all in all, very, very good lens, I'd say. If you have any questions or comments, just write me below. I'll definitely be doing some more testing with this lens whenever I get it on a Nikon body that I'm a bit more familiar with. And I've done that since with the Sigma 35mm 1.4, and I'll be posting an update on that lens very soon also. Anyways, enjoy the video clips, and until next time, this is Jeremy Smith, Photog J the Great, signing off.